On episode 12 of Office Hours with Dr. Guy, we talk about time crunches, my theoretical framework, and perfect paragraphs. Bring your questions to Office Hours with Dr. Guy. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Guy. Welcome to episode 12. We are coming back this spring with just a bang. So already rocking 2 episodes out. My hope is by the end of this week, we'll have a 3rd new episode. I really want to get into this cadence where we have 1, 2, 3 episodes a week. That is my dream, because for me, giving you a 6 to 10 minute slice 3 times a week helps stoke motivation. For me, I know that when I am involved in the dissertation process, at least when I was involved in the dissertation process, that having just daily or every other day reminders, getting kind of in the flow, listening to media, watching videos that related to something about the creative process really got me motivated and kept me rolling. And so many of you have been saying to me via email that these videos are so helpful in stoking motivation and keeping your focus running on this dissertation project. So my goal, 3 episodes a week. Also, I just want to say that this is springtime, so the opportunity to really push that energy going forward, push a lot of energy into April, May, and June as a proxy of saying this is going to be the greatest summer ever, so you can finish this dissertation and graduate more on your timeline. I mean, that's another desire that I have, and so I want to make sure I'm keeping up with your energy, and I hope that you want to keep up with that energy too. And the other thing too is lots of you, as many of you have written me about, that there's simply the reality that some of the people from which you're going to be collecting data are not available year round, which means that they are waiting for you and you have to catch up to them and be ready to collect that data before they go bye-bye for the summertime or the fall or whenever their breaks are. So I have lots of great stuff for you in the show today. Let's get into it. Lori asks, what happens if you only have 1 week to write it up? Well, the information was gathered from the first week. We're in week 3 now. We have to submit the full lit review, not a draft. Hey, Lori, welcome to the show. This is a common thing. I mean, so many universities now have dissertation classes. At the university at which I attended once upon a time, there were no such dissertation classes. We had research classes that really had very little to do with the dissertation itself. So many candidates now, like you, have dissertation classes where you have to actually write your literature review, or you have to write your chapter 1, or you have to write your methodology chapter during the course of that course. So I want to say 2 things. One is that I have a feeling that whatever you're creating inside this course, while it is real and while it needs to be given its full attention, it is not the same thing, most likely, as you actually working with your chair. You probably, in these courses, in these university courses, could write, your whole proposal, the introduction, the lit review, the methodology chapter, and then you could take that to your chair and plausibly they could say, well, that's nice, but this is not exactly what we're looking for. We're going to have to make these major revisions throughout for you to progress and move forward and finish and graduate. So item 1 is that what you're doing inside these courses may not actually be the actual final dissertation that you are intending to actually create and that your chair would actually approve. You can talk to people that have gone through your program before to see how much their dissertation changed from these courses until the actual time where they actually defended their dissertation. And my personal feeling and bias is most likely much changed. The second thing is, this is a time crunch thing, is that in my opinion, you should be investing 5 to 6 hours per day on this process if you are under such a time crunch. The reality is, based upon what I'm reading here in your question, if you have a 3-week deadline, so that's 21 days total, I would be gathering no less than 20 to 25 quotes per day such that at that the end of that 20-day period, you have your full 400 to 500 quotes that I typically would imagine it would take to have adequate number of references, citations so that you could synthesize and create that awesome lit review. So for everyone that's watching this, it is not under exactly that kind of time crunch. You just have to look and say, how long from now do I actually want to have my lit review done? And take that number and just divide it out by 400 or 500 quotes. And that will just give you the number of quotes you should be gathering every single day to make sure you're hitting that target. You might ask, well, why 400 or 500 quotes? Well, I think that, for a well-synthesized literature review that is between 40 and 90 pages, you're probably going to need somewhere around that number of quotes to pare down and to gather them together and to synthesize them adequately to make a lit review that is worth reading in a dissertation. So, Lori, long story short is, if you're under a time crunch, I would just look at the numbers and say, how many quotes do I need to gather every day? And man, just gather those. Shumbi asks, brilliant stuff, but I have a question. What theoretical framework or frameworks would underpin environmental education? Not easy to find. Shumbi, welcome to the show. You must be tapping into something that is like, I don't know, out there in the world, because I've been talking about this subject about theoretical frameworks so much in this past week. I don't know what you are all of you that are commenting and leaving emails. There's something that we're all tapped into. This must be Lit Review Theoretical Framework season or something. So my answer to your question is, I created a video about this. I'm going to link it up right here so you can see that. But I think theoretical frameworks overall, the only way that you can discover them is by looking at the dissertations of others, looking at the books written by the seminal authors in your field, and by looking at lots of journal articles that have been written, about your subject matter, and to see what ways of seeing, what lenses did they use to further narrow down, to further understand what they were examining. And, there's lots of ways of looking at the world. And I can look at American politics right now and I can think, whoa, we got some crazy stuff going on. And while that might be true, depending on what lens I put on, I could see what's happening quite differently. And so what I would just say is the only way to discover the lenses for your specific topic is to actually engage in that full-on literature search, do lots of reading, look at dissertations first, journal articles and books second, and see what types of theoretical frameworks are mentioned. And they might not even use the word theoretical framework. You might actually simply have to see where did they talk about a theory, and where did they, if possible, did they describe how that theory is the overarching theory of their paper, or the stance from which they're doing their observation or their data collection. These are questions about theoretical frameworks that you need to ask. I don't have an environmental education one in my brain, but chances are I have a feeling that with about a day or two of reading on your part, you're going to come across at least 3 to 5 of them. Marvin asks, is it appropriate to give examples to explain a point or definition in the literature? Marvin, welcome to the show. Yes, the whole point of you doing a literature review is to define, describe, explain, analyze, and by analyze I mean compare and contrast, and synthesize. And when I say explain, that's examples. You have to provide examples. And throughout your entire literature review, you're going to be doing many things, including you're going to be providing words that require terms that require a definition. And you're going to provide a definition for those words using the citations of your great sources. But in addition to that, you're going to need to provide examples. In a literature review, the best examples are the ones that are offered by the literature. And so, for example, if you come across, I'll just make up a definition. If you're looking at some like teaching strategy, if you were to define what a teaching strategy is, you could look at the literature around teaching, about instruction, and you could find lots and lots and lots of different definitions about instruction and teaching strategy. Inside of that, you're also going to be finding some examples that the authors will provide. What I do not want anyone that is watching this to do is to do lots of direct quoting in their literature review. Instead, I want you to gather lots of quotes in your literature matrix, in your quote matrix, and I want you to talk about all of those quotes around the same, at the same time. So if you found 6 examples of a teaching strategy, well, then you would have to provide a synthesized 1 or 2 sentences describing the many examples of teaching strategy with many different citations there at the end. So long story short, Marvin, absolutely, your job when you're doing the lit review is to gather lots and lots of quotes and provide and those examples that provide explanation as far as what those definitions mean beyond just this, beyond just the definition of the term. You have to provide real world examples so that people can see that you well synthesized the literature and so that you know what you're talking about. And get this, by doing that, you're going to have a more strong foundation yourself, and you're going to have a rocking dissertation defense, because then you in the room are the subject matter expert. Well, everybody, I want to thank you for being part of the show today. Spring is going to be a rocking time. Please, please, please leave your comments and your questions below. Without those, I can't breathe. There's nothing for me to talk about here without your questions. So leave a comment or a question below. That would be greatly appreciated. And make sure you subscribe or click like or whatever button is presented to you. Take care, team. Have a great week.